1. This happened last Friday, and I'm still stumped. For reference, I'm a male in my late 20s, and live with my girlfriend who is currently away on business. I work for a large financial institution in the UK, and often work till very late, as I hate bringing work home. For some background info, we bought our current house a few weeks ago, and during the move-in process I was away with work, leaving it down to my partner and a few friends. My car has also recently had a complete electronics failure, so we were down to just using her car. The house itself is located in a small gated community off of a country road on the outskirts of an upmarket town in the UK. It's surrounded by woodlands, and if you didn't live there or know somebody who does, chances are you wouldn't have heard of it or even knew of its existence. In total, there are 8 houses in the community, and the main gate gives access to the first 6, where my house is located, and then there's a further 2 gates at the top of the road, which lead to 2 very large mansion-style houses. The houses which haven't got individual gates are all about 100 feet away from each other, and have enclosed rear gardens, and the neighbors are all business types, who are very often in work and keep themselves to themselves. Anyway, about 2 days after leaving for my business trip, I get a call from my girlfriend, who seems shaken and tells me that there's a man standing in the garden, and that she can't see his face, but he's walking around and crouching in the tree line. So concerned, but not 100% convinced, as she does have a vivid imagination, and it's the first time she's been home alone in our new house. I tell her to lock the doors, go to bed, and call the police if she sees him again. I return to our city's train station on Tuesday and agree with my girlfriend that she'll pick me up in her car. Then I'll take it home, as she's scheduled to go to Manchester for a conference. I meet up with her, grab a coffee, see her off to her train, and then drive her car back to our house. The time is roughly 9 p.m. I park the car in the driveway, head inside, shower, watch some reruns of King of the Hill, then head to bed. Then get woken up by a light being shone into the bedroom window from downstairs. I get up to investigate, crouching to avoid being seen, and head into the study next to our bedroom, and open the curtains that cover some French doors that lead to a small balcony. My heart drops when I see that a man has now moved toward the back door, and is trying the handle. The house is in an L shape, so although I can see him, he can't see me without moving around from the back door. He stops for a while, begins flashing the light on and off, back into the woods before walking calmly back into them. I call the police and make a report. Nothing happens on Wednesday, but on Thursday, when I'm giving our cat a bath, she's a sphinx, she needs them, I hear the garage door being messed with. I'm in the bathroom directly behind the garage, so I move into the kitchen to get a knife before heading into the garage to check what's going on when the noises stop. But I hear running down the driveway and away from the house. I call the police, and they send an officer around to check the property. All they find is some knife marks and scuffs at the bottom of the garage. On Friday, I get my car delivered from the dealership and decide to work from home. I also parked my car in the garage, leaving my girlfriend's on the drive. At around 11 p.m., I'm in the upstairs study, listening to music, and working when I find myself freezing. I thought I was going to stop breathing as I felt someone watching me, and turning to face the French doors, I see a man, nondescript looking, around 35, wearing a coat and gloves, carrying what looked like a torch, standing on my balcony. Our eyes meet. Now filled with rage, I go for one of my golf clubs from my golf bag, and charge towards the door. He climbs down off of the balcony and runs off into the woods. I've never seen this man in my life before, but I'm sure it's a man that's been causing problems recently. It also dawned on me that he would have only seen my girlfriend before, and only seen her car. Maybe he thought she lived alone. I have notified the police and have bought some more security devices to install on the property, as well as parked my car on the drive with hers. We don't know who he is or why he's doing this, but we're hoping it won't happen again. Update. I've spent the weekend setting up lights and such, and I've put dash cams in both cars. One thing I did notice when setting the camera up in my car was some deep scratch marks in the paint. I've had the car in the garage and on the drive since it was delivered, It was immaculate when I took it in to have the electricals fixed, and it was immaculate the day I put it in the garage. It's definitely not any of my neighbors, though. This is a 2018 plate 540 IM Sport. Most of my neighbors are in Porsche territory, so definitely not a jealousy thing. I've also had a strange phone call from a random number with too many zeros, but unsure if this is related. 2. The events of this story happened about a few weeks ago. I volunteer at a hospital a few blocks away from the college I attend twice a week, and is located in a pretty bad neighborhood that's no stranger to muggings, stabbings, drug deals. You know, those kinds of crimes. During the day it isn't too bad, but at night you generally want to walk as quickly as possible when you're going somewhere. There's a guy who hangs out around the neighborhood who has quite the reputation of conning people out of money. I see him across the street every day on my way to work, but I've never had a personal encounter with him. One volunteer I work with, who lives in the area with her mother, told me that he's notorious for making up fake sob stories about how he lost his job, can't pay his rent, can't afford a bus fare, or any kind of story to get him some money. She told me she lives with his cousin and he blows every dollar he has on booze and drugs. Once I finished my shift, I went to the volunteer room to grab my stuff and head back to my dorm. Now I wore a light black hoodie that had the two guys from Daft Punk and their logo on the back. This will factor in momentarily. I walked out of the building and put my hood up as it was raining a bit, and by the time I left it was about 7 at night. I walked about a block down the road when I see a guy cross the street and he approaches me. He said, "Yo man, can you help a brother out? My daughter needs a new pair of shoes and I can't afford them. Can you please spare me some money?" I actually didn't have any cash on me, so I wasn't lying when I told him I had no money on me. He started telling me that I had to have cash on me and to please have a heart, and give him money for his daughter's shoes. I apologized to him once again. I had no money to spare. I walked across the street away from him, and this is when things start going south. He starts screaming, "You fucking liar! You're fucking loaded, I see what you're wearing. That must have cost you a fortune." Is he serious right now? This hoodie only cost me like $15 off Amazon, and besides, I already told him I had no money. Why couldn't he just bother somebody else? He continued to follow me, ranting and raving about how rich people like me spit in the faces of poor people like him, and can't even lend a hand in their time of need. This continued for about a block until I finally had it, and screamed at him to leave me alone. He just stood there looking angry, and he attempted to throw a punch at me. I moved back, avoiding it, but then he grabbed my arm and tried to pull me towards him. I punched him in the stomach, and he let go of me. I began running away from him, and he started chasing me. I turned onto a busy block, hoping he would leave me alone, but it didn't seem to deter him at all. He continued chasing me, yelling about how he was going to teach my rich ass a lesson about charity. My heart was racing pretty fast, and I felt like I was running on autopilot. Police officers patrol this road quite a bit, so I was hoping one would pass by and see this guy chasing me. But it looked like I was extremely unlucky that day. I was trying to think of a way to shake him, with my mind racing in all directions, when my luck finally shot up. I managed to dart across the street, where the light was about to turn green. I kept running, and I heard the sound of a car horn and screeching of the brakes. I looked back to see him getting up off the sidewalk, so I believe he must have jumped back to avoid getting hit by a car. He just stood there, staring at me, and gave me the middle finger and walked away. I didn't stop running, though, and I continued to run for another block before I finally stopped. I leaned up against the lamppost to catch my breath, and I couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. What was wrong with this guy? Why couldn't he just go bother somebody else for money? Why did he attempt to assault me? Why was he chasing after me? I felt more angry than scared, to be honest. I was pissed about what he had tried to pull. Instead of going to campus straight away, I went to the precinct and filed a report on him. Apparently they told me this wasn't the first time he tried assaulting and harassing somebody on the street, and that they were working on getting him into custody. I started taking a different route to work after that, and I never personally saw him again, so I don't know if he was ever arrested or not. But what I do know is that I never want to meet him again. 3. In early 2007, I was freshly 18 and newly married, living in Fort Polk, Louisiana, while my husband was training at Fort Benning. I was born and raised in Alaska, so living in the continental U.S. was a vastly new experience for me. My husband had a weekend off, though he was not allowed to leave the base, so we bought a Greyhound bus ticket for me to visit him and meet the soldiers he became friends with. I had never been on a Greyhound bus before, but I was excited to drive through the South and see new places, and have my own little adventure. Sure, plenty of creeps bothered me on the bus and at stations, but I still had interesting conversations, met new people, and generally enjoyed the experience. Regardless of the time, each station we stopped at was open and offered food, outlets for charging, and bathrooms. So when we arrived in Columbus, Georgia at about 2 a.m., I expected the station to be open. It wasn't. Everyone else who ended their journey there had a ride waiting for them, and suddenly I was completely alone outside a locked building in the middle of downtown Columbus, full dark and terrified. I didn't know what to do, and my phone was nearly dead from the last long leg of travel. I thought about walking to a gas station, but I had no idea which direction to go, and I couldn't see any nearby lit buildings. I truly expected the station to be open, thinking I would stay there for a bit while my phone charged and I had something to eat, and could have access to a phone book so I could call for a cab. All I had was an old sign hanging on the side of the building with incomplete phone numbers for taxi companies. The numbers had faded, been scraped off, and defaced. There was only one complete phone number, and it was handwritten in Sharpie at the top of that list. Better than nothing, right? Wrong. I called the number and a guy answered, casual and sleepy, asking who I was. I apologized, explaining I was trying to call a cab, when the guy perked up immediately and said, "Oh yeah, that's me. I'm on my way." My phone died 10 minutes after I made the call, and it was another 15 minutes before the guy showed up in a traditional-looking yellow taxi. I noticed the cab wasn't marked, no logo, number, rates, anything, but it had that taxi light thing on the top, and in my young, naive mind seemed totally legit. He waved me over, I got in, and asked him to take me to Fort Benning, finally feeling some relief. The doors auto-locked, and I will never forget the first thing he said to me. He was silent when we got on the main road and said, "Did you really think it was a good idea to call a number written in Sharpie?" I froze. In retrospect, no, it wasn't the best idea I've ever had. But I had so few options, I didn't want to be stranded in a huge foreign city in the middle of the night. I don't know what else I could have done. After a minute, I tried to laugh it off and hoped he didn't notice I was shaking. I reached for my phone before remembering it was dead, and realized that if something happened to me, no one would know if I even made it to Georgia. Staring at me in the rearview mirror, the driver told me what was going to happen. "There's no use in getting to Benning this early. The post hotel isn't even open. Drive around with me for a while, hang out, and I won't even charge you." I told him no thanks, I really need to get to Fort Benning right away. "Nah," he said, and that was that. We drove to a worn-down apartment complex, where he told me he was picking up a regular to keep me company. I didn't reply. What could I even say? I wasn't raised religious, but I was praying to God for some kind of miracle. Out came a woman who looked a bit like a cliché prostitute. Tube top, miniskirt, smudged mascara, and an unlit cigarette hanging from her lips. Short but ratty bleached hair, pockmarked face, cheap purse. I have no idea who or what she truly was, but she got in the front passenger seat and lit her cigarette. She turned to look at me. "Don't worry, he's cool. We're cool." Uh-huh. That definitely helped. I had never considered jumping from a moving vehicle before, but even if I wanted to, the back doors were child safety locked and I couldn't open them. Trust me, I tried. I was trapped like a caged animal just waiting to die. I felt so stupid, so foolish, sitting in the back seat of the cab, no idea what to do, and no idea what was going to happen to me. I kept trying to rationalize it, downplaying the situation in my mind. I was too afraid and frozen to actually do anything anyway. As we were driving around, the girl was telling me about the driver, how he was ex-military and had just started this cab business. What a down-to-earth fun guy he was, and how lucky I was to be picked up by him. How I was cute and young and everything was cool, cool, cool. Her words were a bit slurred, and I knew she was either drunk or high on something. I didn't really want to know. We pulled up outside a small blue house sometime later, about an hour before the break of dawn, and the driver told the girl to keep an eye on me while he went inside. I'm in full-blown panic mode, the suspense of it all making it so much worse. So the girl offered me a cigarette to calm my nerves. I wasn't a smoker, but I said yes. She got out of the cab, opened my door, stumbling a bit, before sitting on the curb and lighting another cigarette. She lit mine as I sat next to her. I started thinking about whether or not I could outrun her with my heavy backpack, and how long the driver would be in sight for. Without me asking, the girl told me the driver inside was showering in preparation. I asked what he would be showering in preparation for, but she just kept repeating how he was cool, how much fun we were going to have, and how cute I was. Then she said, "Ranger cab because he was like a ranger or something. Or maybe that was his dad. He's a good-looking guy. Military muscles." God finally answered my prayer when the girl slumped over and passed out in the grass. I saw the track marks on her arms and guessed it was heroin. And apparently the driver was inside taking a shower and wasn't about to come back in the next few moments. I grabbed my backpack and ran like hell. I don't remember exactly what happened after I started running. I know I took off as fast as my feet would carry me, and that I didn't dare stop to catch my breath. 1 minute I was sprinting for my life, lungs on fire, and then I was trudging along with tears in my eyes as I walked through the Fort Benning gate with my military spouse ID, asking how to get to the base hotel. Honestly, I wish I knew how I got there. I was in deep survival mode and didn't start to process any of it until I made it to my room. I don't know if someone gave me a ride, if I followed a map or what. I've never blocked a memory out like that before or ever again. I told my husband everything when I finally saw him. He didn't believe me. I probably wouldn't have believed me either. His lack of trust made me think no one would take me seriously. So I never went to the police. I still had the number I dialed saved in my call history. I knew the girl called it the Ranger cab. What I didn't have was the confidence or support to report it. Sometimes I think back on that day and wonder what could have happened if the girl didn't let me out of the cab, if she hadn't passed out on the ground, if the driver never stopped for a shower. It's one mystery I really don't need the answer to. We were only married for a year after this event. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 347. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I just want to say thank you to everybody who left very nice feedback on the upload of the part 6 of Jack and Andy's Adventures on Sunday. I miscalculated severely, however. I said I thought I was almost done. I was actually working off of an old draft. There'd been 2 updates since then. Scott had sent me the what he referred to as the master copy. Then there was an additional number of pages after that. So I've currently got enough rough estimate for another 12 parts at approximately the same length. So we're securely supplied with Jack and Andy Adventures for quite some time to come. Now, in regards to the True Scary Stories, please don't be surprised if one Monday or Wednesday, which are the days I do them, something else pops up. It's just because right now we're going through one of those periods where the stories are kind of hard to find. They're a bit sparse. Sometimes they are plentiful, and hopefully that day will come again. But I think maybe as we're heading in more towards the holiday season, that could be why. I think this Thanksgiving week for America. We don't celebrate that over here, of course, so I'm not quite sure of the timing, but maybe that's why. I have noticed there's certain times where the posting rate dips, but I'll do my best to get them made, and if I can't do those, well, we'll have something up. There's usually something to do. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.